Greetings, everyone! Welcome! It's I, Dracovin here at the Dracovin Empire, and we're going to be talking about Shadowrun today. Are you ready to join back with me, heading back into the Sixth World, learning about another nation/region within the Shadowrun world that you can go visit and get some adventures in? Today, we're heading back to Asia. Yep, we're going to be learning about the Indian Union. So hopefully, you're ready to take my hand, grab your deck, grab your monofilament katana, get some guns, and head into the shadows. It's time to run. Yeah, we're heading back into Shadowrun. And of course, when I'm going to be talking about the Indian Union, I'm going to be talking about a lot of the ups and downs that have happened within the Union over the time period here. Of course, it's a thing. And an interesting nation where some things have changed, but also remain the same. It's one of those things is India has both changed and remained the same in a lot of ways. So let's learn about it and kind of dive into some sources you might want to check out. And these are going to be my primary sources, along with a little bit from the website, the wiki for the Indian Union, Shadowrun Wiki. But I'm mostly using Shadows of Asia and the Sixth World Almanac. These are the 3rd and 4th edition books, appropriately, that give us the best idea of the Indian Union. Granted, 5th edition doesn't have any major changes, usually story-wise, and 6th edition really hasn't talked about a lot of things, so there might be some small changes here and there, and certainly speaking, some of the statistics we talk about will be a little different. So, why don't we talk about those statistics and then the history of India to start out with, so just so things that you know about the place. So, it is a bicameral parliamentary democracy, and it has still a very large population. It has lost a lot of population, a lot of things have happened. It's really devastated it. But as of 3rd edition, they were just shy of returning to 1 billion people, and by 4th edition, they had exceeded 1 billion people again. So it was a thing that you think about now and growth of the country and how much population there is today. Think about how much stuff happened to have these changes. So it definitely is a lot of major things occurring in India. Now it's about 78% human, with some orcs being the next largest one, dwarves, elves, small amounts of trolls, and other. And this is, of course, based on information from 3rd edition. About 25% below the poverty level, 22% corporate affiliation. The strongest education is less than 12 years. Indo-Aryans is the major ethnic group, followed by a few others. In Hindu is, of course, the major language. Hindu, the religion, is also the major religion, with about 11% being Sunni Islam. And the currency is the Indian rupee, though New Yen is oftentimes accepted in urban areas. So keep that in mind when we talk about it. Let's talk about some history. So the thing is, Vita strikes India. That's an important thing, and this is 2010. And one of the unfortunate things is one of the first cases of Vitas in the world occurred in New Delhi. Vitas devastates India. 450 million die. They see the signs of the gods' displeasure. Plagues and the Awaken also push for a revival of Hinduism and a lot of based Hindu cultures. The caste system gets a revival because of this. Places like Calcutta basically almost destroyed here because of Vitas and a number of fires that there. But of course, it was eventually rebuilt in the Indian Union with its 10 million citizens to a cutting-edge state-of-the-art sprawl that has tried to clear out the nearby slums unsuccessfully. So you can see that places have also rebuilt themselves. They've managed to survive. In 2011, many sacred sites awakened. The Ganges, Hindu, and Jamora are purified, becoming powerful mana lines, and the sacred Durchinja pillars of light flare at Lay Nexi. In 2021, Vitas returns. India feels abandoned in unprecedented tragedy and turns its back to the world, pulling out the UN. Several succession attempts fail for some of its member states. Some work, we'll talk about those. In 2029, Kali Yuga goes into overdrive as the Vita seeds chaos. Bangladere's service and tech industries are decimated, government net-based alphabetization projects suffer devastating setbacks. In 2030, Shikas in Kashmir and Punjab make independence bids, forming Khalistan. Pakistani intervention in support of Khalistan separatists leads to a limited nuclear tactical exchange. Fallout affects newly independent Kazakhstan. It forms a region in this world, in Kashmir, that's kind of a wasteland. So, the Indo-Pakistan War in 2030. Khalistan is devastated. But it has its independence. In 2031, an emanation of the god Jagoth, Lord of the World, is believed to have walked with pilgrims during the Holi festival, signaling a change in national spirits. India begins picking up the pieces, working on a new urban, rail, road, and matrix network to begin. From 2035 to 2045, Indian Union and coalition ascends to power, ending decades of provincial bickering and making overtures to the rest of the world. BRA signed with corporate court. In 2055, Calcutta replaces Bangalore as the economic capital, seeking greater representation of the world stage. India lobbies for and gets Balaji Paldor elected Secretary General of the UN. In 2056, insect demons, Rakshasa, break out in several cities. Brahmin mages and Kashitas authorities lead a grueling fight to clear out the hives, reinforcing the Varna's status. In 2061, hundreds of sadhu and regular Hindus bathe in the Ganges surge as an astral flash flood courses down from the sources in the Himalayas. The phenomenon reports later to Devashi and reoccurs at irregular intervals. And in 2062, scandals occur involving radical art cults devoted to self-proclaimed avatars and assurance spirits. So yes, those major events that happened in India. We'll talk a little bit about more of some of these events as we talk about some of their culture. We should probably do that. Talk about some of the culture as it's kind of evolved. Because, yeah, the caste system basically returned with a surge. Most of the population is Hindu. There's a good chunk of Islam and some other smaller groups. But with everything that happened, Hindu resurged as a major part of a lot of days, believing that the Kali's wrath was the Vita's plague. 500 million succumbed to it in the first plague. That's a major thing. That's a major amount of death. And that devastation hurt the country. And a lot of faith was strengthened, especially because with mysticism returning, with magic returning to the world, it helped to reinforce it too. And so the Brahmins, the caste system, returned with a vengeance because people believed in that once again. Of course, then, it's unfortunate that the others, the untouchables, are still being treated badly. The people that are of other religions, born outside the caste system, it's in the hierarchy of the caste system, and its boundaries being very strong have been something that has been reinforced by everything that's happened here. So, the caste relations add to ethnic and, of course, racial dynamics in the region, and it has been a problem. Muslims are oftentimes excluding a lot of stuff, and it is still a minority that is there. Foreigners will always be outsiders. And their nationalism does help them in a lot of ways. But it's been a resurgence in their nationalism, which is important for them, but it also kind of cuts them off in a lot of ways from the rest of the world. They have been separated out. And again, it's not to say that there isn't the Indian Union's Islamic people that are there. And both cultures, at least the groups that are there, do speak for peace, but it doesn't really always mean that there is peace there. And it can influence things even into the corporate sectors in a lot of ways. Construction grants can be granted to one group particularly because they're more Hindu than another because they are Islam. And it could be nothing because of what those construction groups can do. It can just be because of backgrounds like that, which can cause for basically these tensions. Nonetheless, India remains strong. It has its cultural identity still very deeply built into it. And a lot of resurgences in this more modern day have seen that culture be strong. I think it's an important part of that. Their culture remains strong. Now we should talk about the political system of it, because that's an important thing to kind of look at. Of course, the name Indian Union, which they are now, is a much more recent thing. It was the 2038s when the Indian Union Party replaced the Bharatiya Janata Party and changed the name to reflect their basically 1950s constitution that they had. And they've gone through a lot in this. Like, the decades, they've had a lot of growth. They've had a lot of prosperity, a lot of economic things. There have been a lot of, corporations looking to India to connect with it. But, yeah. As for their actual government, it's a federal republic. A president is elected every 5 years and is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. The parliament consists of two lower houses, a national assembly and an upper house, the Senate. The National Assembly is elected every 3 years. A prime minister is normally a member of the National Assembly. The Senate is the state's house, in which the legislators of the Indian states elect 10 senators to serve 6-year terms. There have been some referendums from states asking if the people of the state should become an independent country. I talked about that. And they failed. And that's when the Parliament of India passed the Indian Act of 2030, which makes it clear if any state wishes to leave India, they would have to ask the people a clear question and must get clear results. And of course, states' governors protested this, and they had their crisis in the 2030s that led to the Indian-Pakistan War. They have a Supreme Court, which is their highest court in India. The justices are appointed by the President of the approval of the Senate. It also has the power to veto state legislature and has never used such power. Keep that in mind. Those are some basics of their current government. Yeah, so again, and certainly speaking, you can probably see in their politics a lot of the issues with their people. Let's take a look at India here, and the region, and what's broken away. As you can see, there are regions of India, and India is not the same as it was back in the day, back in the, what we may know of during our time period. There has been breakaways. You can see that their current neighbors are, of course, Nepal, Tibet, Pakistan, Khalistan, the Bangla Commonwealth, and Sri Lanka, all independent. Of course, their provinces, I'm not going to go through all of them, but they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 provinces. I'm not going to go through them because I would really butcher a lot of their names, and I don't want to be very hurtful that way. I don't want to be very disrespectful. But again, in the 6 World Almanac, you can take a full look at the provinces. Major cities. The capital still is New Delhi. It gets kind of lost in the international scale because it's no longer a economic powerhouse. Places like Mumbai or a technical center like Kolkata. It has some industry. It has a lot of bureaucracy that accompanies the democracy that goes over 1 billion people. There's not a lot of zoning or organization. And so it's the new Delhi sprawl is even more chaotic and unplanned than a lot of them. You might find a brand hotel across from a slum, and just down the street of a historic monument, surrounded by an ancient wall. That's New Delhi. The exception to everything here is the new technology Noida district, where mid-sized corporations, subsidiaries, and megacorps are often mostly taking control of it, reducing opportunities for low-income groups. Then, of course, you go to the heavy industrial and thriving film industry in Mumbai, or Bombay, as it has been previously known as. Bollywood's still there, and it has a big output. It has a lot of being a worldwide market when it comes to entertainment, especially coming out of Southeast Asia. It has its own corruption, criminal organizations around the metropolis. Nonetheless, BTL chips, extortion, all kinds of things can be found there. And then, of course, Kolkata has its problems with poverty, street-level survival instincts, and fighting and all that kind of thing. It has a thriving forgery industry. Self-taught hackers making deal with jury-rigged tech that can forge almost anything in the world, from fake sins to gun permits to UCAS hunting licenses. It has received a significant amount of investment over the decades, which has turned the heart of the city into an economic powerhouse, and it's home to a lot of megacorp offices that are more than anywhere else in India. But yeah, the slums are kind of and of course then there are other cities that have pushed forward while still nodding in the past. Varanasi has remained a holy center for Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains alike. And it's not as significant on the international scene as the other three big cities in India, in the Indian Union, and some of the other cities even in the country, but has a lot of significance to the people there. And it's a destination for Hindus, similar to Mecca for Muslims or Jerusalem for Hebrews. Corporate influences is so restricted in the city for fear of corrupting that it's almost limited to retail operations. Let's talk other details in the economy. Well, first off, let's talk about, in the population, there are two specific metavariants that are native to here. One of them is the dwarven one called the Haruman, and then, of course, this one, which I'm showing off here, the human one, which is a four-armed one known as Nartaki, little dancer resembling the medieval Shiva. Srihak Torka launch facility is controlled by the Indian government. Renraku has some pretty big things here. Their armed forces consist of the Indian Army, Indian Air Force, Indian Navy, President's commander-in-chief of all of them, and the armed forces of one of the most powerful militaries in Asia. It is still that it's a very powerful country now, and it has nuclear power. I do, of course, want to mention an important economic center, because that's always a good thing for us to chat about. The MBC axis, the Mangalore-Bangalore-Chennai corridor, were three major small projects put forward by the MBC consortium involving Renraku, Shiwase, Z Imperium, HKB, Yamatsu, and Tranix, among others, revitalizing old southern India tech hubs. This high-tech real estate development and new high-speed monorail link are designed to maximize the potential of local expertise. Bangalore still exceeds in cyberware and software designs. Chennai is a mecca for pharmaceutical and gene tech developers, and Mangalore is world-renowned for advances in holistic medicine and biotech. So, while this area here is not any one big city, this region here is a tech hub and very heavily invested in megacorporations. But there's our basics of India, the Indian Union. It's a very interesting nation because it's gone through a lot. And interestingly enough, like a lot of places in the Sixth World, it's found diving into its old culture actually reassuring. And this is something that sometimes you see in countries and sometimes you don't. The old culture reassures the new. And finding a new mixture of that is something that's evolving. Certainly the way that we look at modern-day India is a lot different than we would look at the Indian Union in Shadowrun. They had a major event in the 2010s which shifted them completely. Shifted their way of looking. Hit them into a conservative direction, but not just any conservative direction, a religious conservative direction. And basically cut them off from the world for decades. They were separated out. And they went through a lot of things with the awakening, with globalization, with, the repeated Beatus plagues, with the crashes that were going on. They suffered and came out of it in a way stronger, more united as a people. And that's a good thing for them. And as we're getting into what is 5th edition, 6th edition's time frame, we can see that India has become a powerhouse in Asia. Yes, they still don't really involve themselves as much with the outside world, but they've begun to connect with it. Seeing that a member of them becomes the person in charge of the United Nations. Yes, the United Nations doesn't have the same kind of power, influence, but having a Indian person be elected the Secretary General in 2055 is a good sign that they are beginning, after maybe 40 years of being separated, to connect back up with the world. They wanted to fix themselves in a lot of ways, and maybe there still are issues there. The problems with the castes are something that they've always suffered with, that, certainly speaking, it is a very Indian thing. It's something that is natural to their society. It's natural to their religion. And so, looking at it from the outside, I can't give a good opinion about it. I can't give an opinion that's, I understand it very well. But it's something that they deal with, and it is any kind of trouble or advantage they have from it is theirs to figure out where it balances out with a society that is a modern-day society and one connected with the world. Again, you have to see that it is something that is very important to them, because it's something that has helped them regain themselves. But will its resurgence be something that will hinder them now in the reconnection with the world stage? I don't know. Maybe it's something they can find a balance with the world. I think the India that we know was trying to find a balance between those old castes and their religion and the world. And it's a tough thing to find something when you have a culture, and certainly a religion that most of your people follow, that is deeply ingrained into a lot of that culture, and find that balance. And even you can see this version of India is doing that, trying to find that balance. And yes, they've had some issues with their neighbors. They've had growing pains. They've had troubles. They've lost territory. The Kashmir Waste, Khalistan, Bangla Commonwealth growing even far. All their neighbors are still there. And them finding something new and improved and building on themselves is something they will continue to do. Alright, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I really should give a basic shout out of the like, subscribe, ring the bell at the beginning of the video. I have to remember to do that, to give just a basic shout out, or for those of you watching the video and not live on Twitch. Just a reminder. I have a schedule up. I'm going to try to get schedules up. So if you want to see my times when videos are going up on YouTube, when I'm live, schedule will be up on the Discord, schedule will be up on YouTube, schedule will be on X/Twitter. So keep that in mind. The schedule will be mostly kept. Yeah. Okay. Make sure to check out all my other stuff. I'm streaming 8 o'clock on Wednesdays. Discuss People Saturdays at 6. And all my stuff, and those are on Twitch. They go up on YouTube later. Those are the two that I really want to shout out, other than my, hey, I'll be doing more of these things. And I'm going to hang out with Twitch for a little while, and then we'll see what else we're going to do. And, yeah, there's a lot of information here. I didn't necessarily dive into as deep as I thought I could. I wanted to keep things brief here, because it is a lot of information, but it is a lot of information that I wanted to keep it to what you really need to know as a basics as a Shadowrun. whether you're centering your games out of there or visiting the Union. More that's probably what it's visiting. But hey, if you've had adventures, here's my question for the day. If you had adventures in the Union or in the subcontinent, let me know. I'm interested to see if there's been anybody who's had adventures there, whether you're running directly out of there or visiting. I'm curious. So, hey, let me know. Anyway, until the next time, I bid all of you a beautiful day.